Welcome back. Thank you for joining me again here on Behind the Rose. I'm your friend and your brother from another mother, the Reverend Ken Blanchard. This week, I got two subjects for you. One, we're diving back into something that every guitarist should know, and that is how winter humidity can mess with your guitar. Now, it might sound technical, but trust me, this is about protecting the soul of your instrument. And I want to give you an update of the gig I just had last week at the Carnegie, a seniors facility up in Gaithersburg. And I do appreciate you coming back and checking me out. Now picture this. It's November already, the middle of the month. The air outside is crisp. The heat inside is blasting. They talked about snow here in the nation's capital. And if you're reaching for your guitar to play a few warm blues licks, there's a catch. That same dry air that's making your skin crack and look all ashy because it's pulling that moisture, it's also doing it to your guitar's wood. And wood, my friend, is alive. It breathes, it shifts, it reacts. So what exactly happens to your guitar in the winter? I'm glad you asked. You see, when humidity drops below 40%, guitars start to suffer. They will bow in or out. You'll know your action gets real low all of a sudden. Won't stay in tune. The wood will contract, the top sinks, and suddenly your action feels off. You might notice sharp frets poking out, and that's because the fingerboard shrinks while the frets stay the same size. Cracks can appear in the body, and tuning stability goes out the window. It's not just inconvenience, it can damage the voice of your instrument. Yeah, serious, right? I know. Nobody tells you this stuff. Humidity is like the invisible caretaker of your guitar. In summer, too much moisture can swell the wood. In the winter, too little dries it out. The sweet spot is 45 to 55% relative humidity. And that's where your guitar feels right at home. It'll be resonant, it'll be balanced, and ready to sing. So how do you fix all that? You got to get yourself a humidifier. You know, the ones that you buy for your room? Yeah. If you keep your guitar on stands or up on a wall, humidify the whole room. You got to monitor that thing. Now, avoid extremes. Don't leave your guitar near radiators, fireplaces, or cold windows. They do have in-case humidifiers. I haven't used one yet. But if you find one, slip it into your guitar case. It's supposed to be something that you use for microclimates, and that might work for you. You got me? To pay for my bubblegum addiction, I tune guitars on the side, and I expect to get about 3 or 4 more than I do normally this time of the year. Yeah, it's called Guitar Care Company that I created. I'm not a really big luthier, but I can make setups and clean your guitar and kind of bring it back to life. And in the wintertime is when I get most of my business. So as the cold winter blows, remember, humidity isn't just science, it's stewardship. Protect your guitar and it will keep telling your story, note by note, chord by chord. And if you want to know which humidifier I bought, I have one that just has what the humidity is on in the room. And I bought I forgot what you call that thing, the gauge that measures humidity, mounted on the wall along with the temperature. And I can tell how the room is sitting. And I try to keep it around 50, 55. I bought it from Amazon, of course. But any of those home stores like Target or Macy's probably has a humidifier. And it doesn't really matter as long as you get some moisture in the air and you can measure it, make sure it's over 45. But you don't want it like Panama. So go for 50% relative humidity. That's where you want to be at. Now, for a guy who hasn't been gigging or playing professionally or in front of people, except for the last 2 years, this is a big deal for me. Had my first Halloween happy hour at a place I'm getting kind of familiar with. It's a seniors facility up in Gaithersburg. Pretty fancy one, actually. And if you've never played music for seniors, you know they don't just show up. Sometimes they show out. And that evening, About 50 or 60 of them were all waiting on me, dressed head to toe in costumes. Most of them were witches, and laughter was in the air, and it was kind of loud. I was kind of scared that my humble, cool music amp wasn't enough, but it was. I've bought a whole bunch of stuff in the last year, testing stuff out, and I got a couple of positive grid amps that they're not worth the fuss. I got a cheaper one, this cool music thing. There's a YouTube post about it, and it's been my best busking amp to date. And it's portable, it's lighter than the positive grid one, and has its own battery. I wish it was louder, but hey, gotta give somewhere, right? And I do think that the positive grid one is louder once you can get through all the settings and all the stuff. It just almost has too much stuff to it that you don't need. Anyway, back to the seniors facility. One lady I recognized right off the bat, and she leaned in as I was setting up, and she says, "We thought you were coming at 3:30. And it was 3:45, of course, and I wasn't scheduled until 4. So I just smiled and said, "Well, thank you for looking forward to me being here." And that was the kind of energy they brought, though. Ready, eager, and alive. I recognized two of the other older women from my last visit, and that was pretty cool, actually. This time I leaned less on my usual ambient blues and gave them more of the classics. I sang some Otis Redding, some Ray Charles, some Willie Nelson, some Beatles, a couple of Rolling Stones, got them dancing, and even the Creedence Clearwater, Turn the Tide. Let me tell you what, when you hit those first chords on Sitting on Dock of the Bay, you can see the years roll back in their eyes. Yeah. So after that set, one person came up to me and said, just what I thought. "You took me back." And I almost teared up. It made me feel good, I'm telling you. And that's why I do this. Music isn't just sound, it's a time machine. It carries us to places where we first danced, first loved, first believed we could do and be more. For me, it's cathartic, it's therapy, it's a chance to be with some people, to be away from the caregiving deal. I kind of hinted to it before, but the setup was simple. I just had one amp, that cool music amp I got off of Amazon, my one guitar, my G&L, and one mic. I had all clean tones, and I had Bluetooth backing tracks. I used a Shure mic, the kind you see on an aerobics instructor this time, and I wanted to use it because I hate leaning into it and banging that pole with my guitar. But this was just as bad because I kept dropping it or moving it, or it was clumsy with it at first. It made me sound like a boob up there for the first 10 minutes because it wouldn't stay on my head. It had a whole bunch of issues. But after the music got going, none of that mattered. Everything kind of worked. So in that room, on that day, on a Halloween night, it really wasn't about being perfect. And that's one of the things I got to always remember. It's not about being perfect. It's about connecting. So that's kind of like my takeaway for you. Never underestimate the power of showing up with what you got, keeping it simple, and giving it your all. Sometimes the smallest setup creates the biggest impact. I'm so glad I found my way back to this music. I got to learn some theory next and keep on working on what I'm doing. Thanks for listening, downloading, and subscribing to Behind the Rose with your friend and your brother, the Reverend Ken Blanchard. And until the next time you hear my voice, shalom, baby.